We all know the sound of epic fantasy from our favorite movies and TV shows, thundering brass climaxes, lyrical folk song-like melodies, and magical chromatic harmonies. But where did this sound come from? One important source is the music of Anton Bruckner. In this video, we'll be embarking on our own epic quest to discover Bruckner's Symphony No. 4. I'm Calvin Dotsey, and this is the Houston Symphony's Classical Notes. The modern craze for medieval-themed fantasy can be traced back to the 19th century. In literature, the Grimm brothers came out with their anthologies of classic fairy tales, while contemporary authors like Hans Christian Andersen wrote their own new, original fairy tales. Other novelists, such as Sir Walter Scott, produced meticulously researched medieval-themed novels like Ivanhoe. Numerous visual artists also got in on the action by incorporating medieval imagery into their paintings. In the world of opera, Wagner peopled his music dramas with sorcerers, dragons, giants, and other magical characters. So it's no surprise that composers of purely instrumental music also were inspired by fantastical tales of long ago. The Fourth Symphony of Austrian composer Anton Bruckner is a prime example. Bruckner himself nicknamed this symphony the Romantic Symphony. And in this case, the word romantic refers to medieval romances, which are old stories featuring characters like knights, damsels, wizards, etc. These medieval romances could almost be considered a precursor of modern fantasy literature. But how can music without words be about anything at all? Well, in addition to the nickname, Bruckner also left descriptions of different parts of the symphony that explain what images or ideas inspired the music. He also alludes to different musical styles and natural sounds throughout the symphony. Perhaps most importantly, however, is that the way he structures the music suggests the arc and atmosphere of a romantic adventure, without actually telling a specific story. Listeners are left to imagine the details for themselves. Like most symphonies, Bruckner's Fourth is divided into 4 parts, called movements. Here is how Bruckner described the opening of the first movement. Medieval city, daybreak. Morning calls sound from the city towers. The gates open. On proud horses, the knights burst out into the open. The magic of nature envelops them. Forest murmurs, bird song, and so the romantic picture develops further. Bruckner's images fit remarkably well with the beginning of the work. Above shimmering tremolo strings, we hear a simple idea. Since Bruckner described this as a sunrise, let's call this idea the dawn theme. Bruckner develops this simple idea by filling in the gaps between the notes. He does this in 2 different ways. One goes up, and the other goes down. Initially, the descending version of this idea predominates. As these ideas evolve, the music crescendos to a powerful statement for the brass instruments. This seems to correspond to Bruckner's image of the knights riding out of the city gates. So we'll call this the Knight's theme. This leads to a lyrical new theme in the violins that seems to correspond with what Bruckner calls the magic of nature. This melody is actually based on the bird song of the Kohlmeise, a European cousin of the chickadee. It sounds like this. For comparison, here's Bruckner's melody again. Bruckner didn't give any details about what happens next, but the music is very suggestive. The dawn theme returns, but instead of building to a bright, brilliant passage, this time the harmonies darken. The night theme then returns, but turned upside down. What went up now goes down. The ascending and descending versions of the theme seem to be reversed. Both appear in this intense passage, as if the night theme is struggling with the mirror image of itself. Ultimately, the original descending version of the theme prevails. It leads to a solemn, prayerful chorale for the brass based on the dawn theme. The music becomes softer and softer until the dawn theme reappears, now overlaid with a countermelody in the flute. After a reprise of the other themes, the dawn theme returns in a sweeping coda that seems to open up new vistas. In a letter, Bruckner described the second movement of the symphony as a song, prayer, and serenade. One of Bruckner's contemporaries also reported that the composer said, "In the second movement, an infatuated youth wants to climb through his sweetheart's window, but isn't allowed in." The movement begins with an introspective melody for the cellos. Presumably, this is the song. The prayer seems to correspond with the following chorale-like passage for strings. This prayer acts as a transition, leading to a long melody for the violas, accompanied by lute-like pizzicato strings, presumably the youth's serenade. The music then gains momentum and intensity. This intense passage, however, is brief and quickly leads back to a reprise of the main themes. Interestingly, however, the prayer theme is missing. Instead, we hear this more fragmentary passage. After a reprise of the serenade, the music builds to an intense climax based on the opening song theme. The movement then ends, fading away. Bruckner described the third movement as a hunting scene, which fits with the exuberant hunting horns that begin it. The movement has an ABA structure. The A section corresponds to the hunting theme. The central B section, however, is in the style of a gentle Austrian Landler, a kind of folk dance. Bruckner noted that a barrel organ plays during the midday meal in the forest. Regarding the final fourth movement, Bruckner was more mysterious. When asked years later what had inspired it, he claimed to have forgotten. As it stands, the finale forms a powerful conclusion to this romantic symphony of nights, serenades, and forest hunts. It begins with an air of mystery as we hear an idea that consists of 3 falling notes. A sort of shadowy counterpart to the dawn theme from the first movement. Becoming faster, this idea crescendos to the dark, severe main theme of the movement. The music then builds again, leading to the shining return of the dawn theme from the first movement. A series of more lyrical, rhapsodic themes ensues. The music fades until a final, explosive theme suddenly erupts. These main ideas are then developed and reprised throughout this intense and powerful finale. What could this music represent? A storm? An epic battle? Bruckner left it open to you to imagine your own fantastic adventures. But I think it's safe to say that this one has a happy ending. You can hear Bruckner's Fourth Symphony and more great music performed by the Houston Symphony each week on Houston Public Media. Visit houstonsymphony.org to learn more. Thanks for watching and enjoy the music.